Hey, everybody, welcome to the Brave Healing Podcast, where we are changing the world one brave word and vibe at a time. You guys, being brave, most of the time, it just means you're showing up as your vulnerable, full on self. I am Laura DeFranco, and I want you to know that your story has the power to heal you and the people listening to you. The fear of not good enough, it's boring, y'all, because what if the thing you're still a little afraid to share is exactly what someone needs to hear to either change or even save their life? So, here today to share a powerful story with you, I am very excited to have as my guest Afia Chin. Afia Chin is part of the first generation of her family born on this landmass with a diverse cultural background that is the lifeblood of her craft. Born in Brooklyn and bred in the DMV, she is a multifaceted artist whose creative roots were first steeped in the literary arts, music, and various means of visual art mediums, and her spoken word abilities birthed from a theater background, which brings life to her lifelong writing passions. Through these means, she's able to bring awareness to her family's nonprofit organization as the executive director of Labor of Love, which has provided educational and healthy living resources to rural, that's easy for me to say, communities in Ghana since 2002. You guys, you're going to find that information at lolngo.org. Of course, I'm going to have you linked up in the show notes wherever you're watching or listening to this show, so no worries there. And I'm going to add one more thing, and that is to this little bio of yours, that if you have ever been fortunate enough to watch this goddess on stage, you know that she is pure fire. And I wish maybe bonfire even, you guys. Welcome, Afia.
Thank you so much, Laura. It is such an honor to be in this space. I love everything that you do, and thank you so much for your kind words. It's truly great to be in this space.
You've done a couple poems that I've watched you do, more than one time. And there is something about a poet when you know the poem, like you've heard it before, you've seen it performed before, and you're still like you're on the edge of your seat and like you're feeling it into like the middle of your heart and your soul. And you don't care how many times you have heard it. It is that good. And that is how I think of you, my dear.
Oh, thank you so much. I am actually in the process of working on some new pieces. This quarantine, this lockdown has given me the opportunity to refocus.
Yes.
But I still have my in the arsenal favorites. So
I love it. So, what I want to start with, really, you heard me talk about how stories heal, and I know you are a believer of that. So, what's your story?
Well, long story short, like you said in my bio, I'm the first generation, part of a first generation of my family born here. My mom is Ghanaian, my dad is Trinidadian and Chinese. I was born in New York. I grew up here in Northern Virginia. Growing up here was not really easy at first. I was bullied a lot growing up. And then I just kind of started to follow the beat of my own drum. As I got older, I decided I wanted to do different things. I didn't know that this would be my path. I didn't know that my art passions would take me down this road and lead me to this place. I had worked in different places. I've been a firefighter, EMT. I've worked for the airlines. I've done all of it. I did security one time. I don't know how I got there. It just, so many different things took me down this winding road of life. And, but most recently, my journey took me to California. My life took me to California. And while I was out there, I think that was the time that I think I grew the most. I was figuring out what I wanted to do. I'm the first woman in my entire family to actually leave home and become pretty much financially independent before getting married. It's like unheard of in our family at,
It's a big deal.
up to this point. So yeah, it was a really big deal. Um, and I've been fortunate to have my partner in my life, and always supporting me and always having my back. But distance makes things difficult. So while I was out there, um, I had experienced a really severe trauma, and after working really hard, I had lost my job living in California. And California is expensive. Living in the Bay Area is very, very expensive. But I had hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, losing my job, losing my housing, not wanting to come back home because I didn't want to feel like I failed. And I kept pushing and pushing, and things were going really great. But it was December of 2018, I was sexually assaulted in front of my home in Oakland at knife point. And I didn't really know what to do, but I knew that when I came home for the holidays, that if I told my parents what had happened, if I told my family what had happened, the life that I had that just took me 8 months to build was going to be over. And it was. And the first week of January of 2019, my entire life in 5 days that I had been waking up at 4 a.m., busting my butt, going over, on public transit, dealing with all kinds of different things. I almost got shot in Oakland. Like, life was crazy, but it was over in 5 days. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had just applied to college for the first time and gotten accepted to film school for producing. And I had realized that my art passion had taken a different turn. I had been doing spoken word for several years until 2019, but I never really thought that it was going to take me down, like I said, this path I'm on now. But when I came home, I hit this roadblock of depression, and I just was in this pit of darkness for a few weeks, and I just didn't know what to do. But like every time before, whenever I've hit trauma, whenever something has happened that has pulled me down, um, I've always had to kind of find a way to pull myself out, because I've been fortunate enough to have my mom explain to me in my life, and she's a huge supporter and one of the most motivational people I know, and one of my biggest inspirations. She always told me that you have to dig down deep within yourself and find the light and the strength to overcome. And she reminded me of the journey that my grandparents had taken to get to this country. She reminded me of the journey that my father and his mother took to get to this country. Thinking about that had taken me down a different mental strain. Like, if they can get through those hardships of surviving, government being overthrown and traveling and with 4 children at, under 25, I'm sure I can pull myself up from this.
And all relative, right?
Right. It's all relative. And at that moment, I decided, you know what, I need to use this art passion that I have and use it for something. I need to do something good with it. And my mom she started this organization, Labor of Love, since 2002 in honor of my grandfather, who passed away on 9/11. In his home in Brooklyn. I think a lot of times we don't think about the people who were affected outside of the buildings falling in New York.
Yeah.
Emergency vehicles were just not able to access him. So unfortunately, he did pass in his home.
Oh, wow.
But I thought about why she started the organization, and it was because she wanted to use it to help herself overcome her traumas. So I took it on, and I said, let me see what I can do with this. I'm a fresh mind. I have a different perspective, fresh eyes on it. Let me see what I can do. And that was the first time I had taken the initiative to produce my first show. And in August of 2019, I successfully sold out almost 200 seats at the Drummers Beat.
Congrats.
And thank you so much. And it was a huge success.
Wow.
We had fashion, we had traditional drummers. It was the first time that the Ghanaian culture and African culture had been brought to Old Town Manassas the way that it was brought to Old Town Manassas. And I realized that, oh my God, if I can do this in such a short amount of time, what is going to stop me? And one of my best friends, Deandra, said to me, she's like, girl, you're the only person I know who could do a year in less than a year. Like, I don't even know how you're doing this. I said, I saw it and I wanted it to happen. And I pushed myself and I kept pulling myself, even during that period of producing the show, hitting all kinds of hardships and roadblocks. I just was like, this has to work. It has to work. I cannot get so close to being successful at something and not letting it work. So that's my story in like a kind of nutshell.
That's a
But
pretty good
like of most recent history of how I got to where I am now. And since the Drummers Beat, doors have just been flying open. And my poetry community during my healing process while producing that show helped save me from myself too.
Mm-hmm.
Big shout out to Kaniki and 13 for really bringing me under their wing and just being part of my healing journey, and being so great with the workshops Kaniki provides, with hosting at Busboys and Poets. I made it like a religion to go and do poetry every single week until that event. And it really changed my life. And it prepared me for the show because I spotlighted right before the show. And when I tell you, I look back at that spotlight, I'm like, ooh, that's what we were doing? we did that. All right. So.
And it was perfect, I'm sure.
It was, when I tell you, I look back at that and go, learned a lot of lessons. Not my best work, but I appreciate that moment so much.
And so much more important that it was out there imperfect than not.
Yes.
And then you evolve and you do it again and it just gets better and you evolve, right? And yes, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, there's a lot there. I have about 5 or 6 different directions.
Please
of
take
questions.
It wherever you want.
Well, first of all, I'm just going to acknowledge it for a moment and say I'm sorry for what happened to you.
Thank you.
And I know that you, because I've heard you do it on stage, you don't just share poetry, you share you. And you share a very raw and vulnerable description of what happened to you. You kind of you put it out there and you don't let yourself hide from actually bringing the words out of your mouth of the reality of what happened. And I appreciate you for that. I haven't had really the chance to tell you that, but I'm telling you that today. Yes, you're welcome. I grew up in the Bay Area and went to school in Oakland. And so I know the area very well. And it's also a place where I became me in all of the hard ways and not so hard ways and just all the stuff,
It's an interesting place. Like,
yes.
When I think back to all the experiences I had, regardless of the trauma, I know that was the time that I really, really blossomed into myself and really pushed through the levels of what it takes to be independent. And like I said, being the first woman in my family to do what I did was really a big deal. And it was good that my mom got to see me get to that point, come to see me, visit me in my own space that I was paying my own rent for, and being like, you did it. Like you were the one. And I'm so proud. And the thing that still makes this healing journey, because no, I'm not 100%. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm great. Like, that's just not true. I'm thousands of miles ahead of from where I was, but the thing that made it difficult was just how it was handled. Unfortunately, Oakland police, I followed protocol as best as I could based on the circumstances. But Oakland police really just didn't do anything. Like, they left me hanging, and there are 425,000 cases that are unsolved in this country. Pretty much that number is just ridiculous to me. And so I use this platform to bring awareness to sexual assault victims, domestic assault, domestic violence victims, because it's so prevalent, and the trauma that is experienced from those circumstances is just, it's really unfortunate, but we have to use the voice that we have to heal and to bring awareness to what we can.
Yes, and you are for sure doing that every step of the way, my dear. I appreciate what you're doing in the world in all of those ways. It takes a warrior. That's why brave healing. I mean, seriously. So, okay, so you wanted to talk about a topic today that actually turns me on so much, and you call it owning your journey. And there's just so much in this, honestly. Like, this probably needs to be your book.
I'm working on things.
I figured that you were. So talk to me about this. Tell us what you want to tell us about owning your journey.
Owning your journey is as plain as it sounds. It is recognizing that you're on a path, and that you have to accept that no matter what is going on, you're on this path. You're moving forward. You can't, not allowing anything to prevent you from seeing that there is a tomorrow. I think that once we recognize that we have purpose, like, we all have a purpose, but recognizing the specificity within our purpose makes it a lot easier to be like, that's what I'm going to do, and we can move forward. But the first step really is recognizing, like, I am on this path in life, and I am required in some capacity. You have to go from very general, broad ideas to starting to break it down from there, and really coming down to the specificity of what it is you want to accomplish. But I started to really own my journey when I recognized that while I was going to poetry every week, I was starting to see the reactions in the crowd, and people responding to and getting that, that in live and real time feedback.
Yes.
And people saying, like, no, thank you so much for sharing that piece. I needed to hear that. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be, okay, like, this is something that needs to continue to happen.
Yes.
But you don't know unless you try.
Exactly. I know. And how brave it you have to be sometimes to step on that stage for the very first time. Do you remember that moment?
I do.
Where was it? What was it?
Well, like, for poetry, it was at Spirits and Lyrics at the City Tavern, back when they used to be at City Tavern. I was 19 years old. It was a very special moment.
You were young to be on a stage then for the first time. Yeah. That's amazing.
I can't believe that was like 7 years ago.
Well, you're still really young.
Still really young, but when I think about how much time has transpired since then, I'm like, ooh, we coming up on a decade already? Like, what? But I remember I was at Spirits and Lyrics at the City Tavern, and it was the first time my cousins, like all of the eldest cousins, we were all together for the first time in 13 years.
Oh, wow.
It was a really big deal. And our eldest cousin was the one who introduced me to Spirits and Lyrics. So shout out to you. Akos, I love you. But yeah, if not for her, I wouldn't even know that this space existed. But I was sitting down, and I kept hearing people doing poetry, and I'm like, and I've always written poetry, like, I had to move back home during this lockdown, and I'm like, okay, whatever. It's fine. It is what it is. I'm not complaining. My parents are awesome. like they're amazing. But
Yeah.
while being here, I realized I've been writing poetry my whole life and like finding these bits and pieces. But in that moment, I didn't realize the power of the things that I had done from being a little kid, kind of playing back into that space and being like, here's a space for you to do that thing you've been doing forever. And I just scribbled on the back of a piece of paper, like a quick poem in like 4 or 5 minutes. And I was like, does anybody else want to share? Anybody else get on the list? And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And this was actually right around the time that I believe it was Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin. It was one of the shootings. Like it was just, there was so much happening in that time frame, but I was very impassioned from that during that time. And I remember going up and doing just a poem about how to release from suffering. And it was short, it was quick. I don't even know where it is, honestly. But it felt so freeing. Like I had a thought, I wrote it down, I read it in front of people, and it was like, I got feedback, cool. And and after that I was hooked. I didn't want to like not go. It was amazing.
There's such a therapeutic experience that happens at the open mic that several people talk about. And I love hearing people's stories of that over and over again, because it just sort of backs up my own feeling of it, where I'm not alone in that feeling. Obviously, there's so many people that feel it. And I talk to people who they watch people like you who are seasoned now, and they, deep inside, like, oh, what if I might be able to, oh, I don't know if I could do it, and you could hear their mind trash, like constantly going, just sabotaging themselves against trying it because of the fear. And sometimes you just have to step through the shaking and do it anyway.
Yes, absolutely. The one thing that I've learned in this process, in this journey, is you have to have faith in yourself. I have a quote that I've been using a lot lately. I am the light within my own darkness. Perceiving myself as a lotus flower, because lotus flowers, I've been posting these daily affirmations for Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is like a great day for this.
Yes.
It's being the last day. But every day you should be aware of your mental health, everyone. You should definitely be doing that. But I realize, like, if I perceive myself as a lotus flower, this beautiful, full petaled thing that grows from the swamp mud, that doesn't even have sun, like sun is trying to push its way through this murky water to help me get to this thing, get to the surface. I know that if I perceive myself this way, I can become and blossom and hit the surface and be admired for all the work that comes up, that it takes to come to the top. And not the actual top, but the top of self, the highest level of self-awareness and appreciation. It's a journey. So we have to be able to embrace it for everything that comes with it. The dirt, the muck, all of it. It all has to be worth it, right? We just have to keep telling ourselves that.
That is exactly right. I mean, if it weren't for the hardest times, we wouldn't become who we are. And so I can look back into some pretty crappy times and say, thank you. And you're just making me think that owning your journey is the entire journey is a mental health / mindset journey.
Oh yeah.
You and I both know that it's all mind, body, and soul and spirit all together. But when you think about owning your journey, what you're making me think of is the freedom I get when I decide to take responsibility for everything in my life. That's a freedom. And so when I own it, I get freedom in that. But a lot of people say, oh, take responsibility for everything in my life. They go in the other direction. They get scared. They don't know if they can do that. But really what they're not seeing is the potential, the possibility. Yes. Right?
Yeah, no, this is why I love you, Laura. Because that is 100% true. You get to be free in your life when you are maintaining and not being controlling, but when you are fully aware that it is within your control. Your life is in your hands. It is, up to you every day to make a conscientious decision to accept and move within your best mindset kind of thing. It's what was the thing I was writing this the other day in my journal. It was about it was based on a quote. C. Thomas said this to me, and I've written this quote like 4 times this week because it's been a healing week for me. It's, my pain may know me, but it does not have power over me. And I'm like, oh, my pain, it has the deed. It may know where I'm living, but it doesn't have the deed. I am completely in control of this space that I'm in every single day. I'm not going to let it destroy this happy moment. I'm not going to let it destroy the progression. I'm going to be aware of it and conscious of it. And I'm going to be like, oh, you're there. That's cute. Anyway, we're over here.
Well, the whole foundational principle of healing is with awareness, you get the choice. This is what you're describing right now, which I absolutely love. Something else that you mentioned in our little notes before the show is that this takes time, you guys. You need time and you need patience, and it's a practice. Talk to me more about that.
Oh, patience is a virtue. When they say that, they mean it. I've definitely been learning, especially over the last 2 years, to be patient with myself, because you have to trust the process. Not everything is going to be instantaneous. I think that the world that we live in right now, with social media and with just everything being instant gratification coming to us so quickly. We have Amazon Prime. You can order something online and get it the same day. That's unheard of 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're constantly pushing ourselves in these mind spaces that it has to happen right now. It has to happen right now. And it's not going to work like that. Right. You have to be dedicated. You have to be willing to put the time, the effort into what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's just like, I'm a plant mom, so I use my plants a lot in these references. Like, I'm using that in my next workshop for Keep the Conversation Going, which is going to be watering your garden and how to maintain relationships. You can't plant a seed into soil and think that you will have a full bushel of anything tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. The concepts of Rome wasn't built in a day, so on and so forth. We have to remember that these things require our patience. And with that patience, we gain a sense of control as well. Like, okay, I am aware this is going to take a little bit of time, but I'm willing to put the work in. I'm willing to stick with it. I'm willing to be consistent. What can I do to maintain myself until we reach this goal?
That's nice. There's detachment in patience.
I even wore my little clock today to
nice.
remind me.
Yes.
Shout out to Decor.
I love that. Okay, so you got to tell us all about your programs that are going on right now. Tell us about that workshop. And it's how people are going to find out about it is Instagram, right? So just tell us where.
So you guys, if you're interested in my writing workshops, you guys can follow me on Instagram at queen_genius.genie. That's queen_genius.genie on Instagram. I will be posting for this next workshop this week, which is going to be on the workshop is going to be held on June 10th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. We're going to be talking about maintaining our relationships in our lives, and not just romantic ones, because people tend to forget relationships are not just for the love. Well, it's love, but not just romantic. Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I love that you said that, because that's what everyone thinks when you say that word. But honestly, we survive on lots of kinds of relationships, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Important.
And I definitely think now, more than ever, just reevaluating how can we continue to water these gardens in our life. We're dealing with a lot right now in this world. we have COVID, we have the protests and the riots, that are, that are stemming from racial disparities. It's that we have to remember that we're all human. I think that there's a level of, like we were talking about a moment ago, is just patience and time with ourselves so we can help and heal one another. It takes time, and it's going to take more time because we're already so many decades past a certain point, but we're still dealing with a lot of different traumas and things that that garden needs cleaning. It needs those weeds pulled up. Like, there's a lot of reorganization of that box that needs to be handled. And in conjunction with the COVID situation of us not being able to socially engage the same way. Like, we talked a few minutes before the show, like, I miss my humans. I miss my human interaction. I miss my people. I miss hugging. I miss talking to people in the same space and gathering. Because energy, cannot be created nor destroyed, but it's also perpetual. It's everywhere. There are energy fields that we don't see. We can't think that we're the only things that exist in this space, in this dimension, that, interact with each other on just this physical level. So when we're away from people for extended amounts of time, especially to those suffering with mental health disorders like depression, anxiety, PTSD, all things that I am dealing with on my own, it definitely makes me hyper aware of how much isolation does affect me. So definitely staying engaged is another way to water the garden, and just making sure that those are healthy engagements and not draining negative engagements with people who might be going through something that you're not aware of.
Really, really important right now. Before this all went down, we had our stresses and problems and anxiety and all the things. And then we were loaded with something that a lot of us are losing our capacity at this point, because you only have so much to cope and deal. So you said something really important that I want to help our listeners with now. And so I'm just going to ask you, how have you been dealing with it? What have been some of the tools you're using? Because it's a lot with a capital A.
Yeah. I've definitely been focusing on my health, health in all aspects, mental, physical, spiritual, in order to function with, specifically for those suffering with mental health disorders. And even if you're not, technically, if you are in this COVID-19 situation, the whole world is in. We're all dealing with a mental health disorder right now.
Correct.
We're dealing with paranoia from the anxiety of fill in the blank. We're dealing with the depression of separation, and we're going to be dealing with a post-traumatic stress situation after this. So the number one thing to remember is that all three of those things, mental, physical, and spiritual, coincide with one another. Balance is key. So eating, the way you eat is going to help you. What you're putting in your body, how it's processing, how you're working out in the physical. But then for the mental, working on your self-awareness, being patient with yourself, being kinder to yourself, remembering that it's okay to have good days. It's great when you have good days, but it's also okay to have bad days. You're human. Process these human emotions healthily. And then for the spiritual aspect, I definitely do a lot of meditation. I've been really tapping back into the inner self, being very introspective, but not getting lost in that introspection. I think sometimes we get advice in regards to, yes, tap back into yourself, be introspective. But last month, my friend Laurel and I, shout out to Laurel because couldn't have survived Cali without her, honestly. She's one of the people who pulled me out of that whole state of existence of, I don't know if I'm going to make it. She's like, you'll be fine. But she and I did a show called Fridays with the Fridays, and we discussed healthy introspection.
Mm.
So in regards to doing that healthily, we talked about how to journal healthily,
Nice.
not always journaling negativity. A lot of times we're quick to pick up a pen to write down, today I didn't do this thing correctly and yada, 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 whatever it was.
Yeah.
If you've been doing that, take all those pages, rip them out, and burn them.
Yeah.
Ash cannot reanimate. I just wrote that in a poem.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
I like
yes.
that a lot. That's part of, I'm going to get back to, if you've got the awareness, then you have the choice. It's okay to move the words out of you, but definitely pull those out, have a full on release of that, however you need to do it. So burning pages is a really cool thing. And then know that you can go back to your page and you can very consciously come into love and gratitude and joy there too for yourself, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Actually, in regards to the burning of the pages, I was given an assignment to write a piece, a release piece, just get it all like kind of like word vomited out
Yeah.
onto paper. And I added this aspect of the prompt to go on a hike, go to the top of a mountain type situation, go on the journey, carry the words with you, and then destroy them.
I like that too.
Yeah, and then you're incorporating the mental, physical, spiritual simultaneously.
Yes.
Yeah, if you
And
guys are
there's
interested in doing that, that
I love it.
helps.
Yes, I love it. I love it for so many different reasons. Because then also you're taking it out of the place you dwell
Mm-hmm.
and you're bringing it to I don't know, more sacred space where it can then be removed, literally. I hadn't thought about it like that. I like that a lot.
Yes, it's a journey, and like anything, it's gonna have its bumpy roads. It's gonna have the hardships. I believe in this cycle situation that I've kind of been working on with owning your journey, and it goes from, we have hardships, but from the hardships we learn lessons. From those lessons we have special moments that aren't always like great, but they're like special. And then you can, when the special moments have passed, you get joy, and then with joy you celebrate. So kind of like knowing that after the celebration you're going to get back to square one, you're going to hit those hardships and then lessons, and then it's just going to continue. It is a cycle and circle of life. And just keep it in mind while you're traveling in your path in life.
That's a really another really awesome way to remember it. That helps me a lot. I always know that in the cycle there'll be the celebration moment, even if I'm not in it right now. If I'm in the hardship, I have a knowing that
Mm-hmm.
it's the cycle. And so
Yes.
just simply that knowing allows me to be more brave in the hardship and more vulnerable and more present and all of the things, right? Because you have the knowing. You've seen it enough times to have a faith about it.
Yes.
And yeah, I love that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that
You gave,
was
you gave me a visual too, which is always really cool, you know?
it's on, thank you. I honestly I came up with it because as a person who suffers from anxiety, I always need something like solid to like kind of be ahead to keep going into the next day, kind of thing. It's just how I function. But what that like you said, that knowing is it's gonna happen makes such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It has made each day like go by just so much easier.
Definitely. Um, you wanted to talk about something specific, and that was about how trauma affects specific demographics. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
So I started reading this book written by Carl Zimmer, called She Has Her Mother's Laugh. I actually went to his symposium prior to purchasing the book. And the conversation was about genetics and how, certain aspects of interaction amongst humans may create a genetic effect.
Hmm.
And it kind of took me down this rabbit hole where I started getting into reading about genetics. I don't know how I got lost here, but I know I got behind on a lot of different work for a little while.
Yeah.
And what I started researching was, and just from my own personal experience, because I'm not a medical professional anymore, or anything like that. I don't have a PhD or anything, but just a person who really just loves to read and study these different things, because I started realizing that a lot of my friends who come from particularly minority groups, groups that have experienced, gentrification, colonization, in different countries, like there's like a specific trend, and it is this trauma that it's so deeply embedded into how we think and how we move, um that it's like it keeps people in this mentality of that the journey of life cannot be owned. And that's kind of what started the owning your journey movement for me,
Mm.
because like I said, being the first woman in my family, prior to that, it was like, you have to be married to live outside of the home. And I'm like, why? That doesn't even, why? I'm my own person. But I realized that some of these traditions, some of these cultural norms are based in trauma, and it kind of started to rear its kind of ugly head when I was getting ready to move. um, and I'm very candid about my life in this regard, realizing that the reason why my grandmother and my mother and my aunts and some of my cousins were like, you need to just go home, like you can't be out. I'm like, dude, I know how to like take care of myself, I know what I'm doing. And another major reason why I did not want to come home when things were going wrong, I'm like, I gotta prove that this is possible, like this is, we're capable of succeeding.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, how my situation ended up being, it, what are the freaking odds? I just don't know how to really look at that. But the reality was that I was completely capable of functioning as an independent individual and being okay and being completely fine. It was just that there was this, well, so-and-so did this and something happened, so now nobody does it.
Right.
And this has affected particularly even all the way into like going to therapy. I don't have a therapist right now. I am working on doing very thorough research because I'd like to get into therapy for healing. But, constantly attaching certain stereotypes to, well, we don't need therapy, we're fine. Depression isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what do you mean depression is not real? I don't feel, this is not a normal sensation to be in this darkness and like this hole for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. Anxiety is not real. You just need to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? It's not, it's like breaking through these barriers and these ideologies of, why do you think that these things are not real? Oh, because you were living in a specific neighborhood, dealing with getting shot at every day, people shooting every day, people getting, beat up, people in front of you, like these violent acts happening in front of your eyes on a regular basis, imagery constantly being pumped into your brain to the point where it's like, well, that's just Tuesday. It's like, no, that's post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
We need to address that. And so there are massive numbers of people and in different regions, especially in this country, specifically in the Black community, that have gone through these cycles so regularly, to the point where when you talk to the average American Black family about, hey, if they're like 2-3 generations, hey, how many people in this family have gone to therapy? And you're not going to see that.
Okay.
Even and speaking from an immigrant family, that's not happening. I'm just going to say it straight out.
Yeah.
So it's like, why is this trauma so deeply embedded into these cultures?
And how do we move toward healing that? How do we, what are the steps there?
I think it's up to the younger generation,
Mm.
honestly.
I can feel you taking this on.
Yeah. Oh
I
no,
like it.
it's something it's something that I am a very huge supporter of. And healing is so important, whether it's
Mm.
going to therapy or it's holding a guided meditation class, or you should look into yoga. No, it is not just for a specific group. That is not a realistic idea of how these things work.
Mm.
There is a pain, there is a trauma, there is a healing that is required. The first step is acknowledging that these groups are being deeply affected
Mm.
by economic strain, deeply affected by, just the mental, physical, spiritual. For example, food deserts are a thing. Rural communities in this country are a thing.
Mm.
um, Dealing with um, the lacking of access to holistic healing locations and food, and it's like it's non-existent for so many communities because it just seems so expensive, out of reach, and that it's just perpetuated on such a level that it just doesn't seem attainable. And so I want, even with Labor of Love, like my mission as the executive director is to provide educational and healthy living resources, period. We
Mm.
are an international organization. We are doing work in Ghana right now, but the goal is to bridge the gap. The goal is to expand, because there are so many communities across the globe, specifically in the United States, where it should not be on the level that it's at now, because we shouldn't be perceived as a quote unquote third world country.
Mm.
Where we do have the resources and the access to these things, we just need to expand where they are located. So that's my mission in regards to how I could think I can affect that change.
So you guys remember lolngo.org to find a little bit more out about that. You're talking about awareness across the board today in lots of different ways. It is the key when somebody sort of wakes up inside of themselves, and just to the idea that this misery, the very visceral feeling of depression, that's not normal. I was born for more than that. There's more possibility. There is joy attainable, right? But even to help people out of them feeling like that, resigned because that's just the way it is type of thing, right, is sometimes very challenging.
It is. The one thing I've experienced just from my friends all call me the healer in my group. They're like, "Oh, the guru's talking," like, follow the lead. But I've kind of been like, guys, I'm doing this for myself.
Yes.
I'm doing it because I recognize the problem within me, and I have to heal me. I'm in charge of this body. When I wake up in the morning, no one else is moving my limbs. My consciousness is moving it. And so the healing has to come from within. The first step is admitting you have an issue.
Yes.
And just doing it, that 12-step method. And that 12-step method is not just for those suffering from alcohol abuse or drug abuse. It is for people suffering from self-sabotage as well.
Yes.
Admitting you have an issue and then wanting to solve that issue.
That's a key.
Yeah,
That's a key.
I can't help you if you don't want to help you.
Right.
I just, because then what am I doing? Now I'm pouring out of myself, right?
Right.
Pouring into a person who's going like this. Yeah, no, I think that's great that you are like pouring into me and like throwing what I'm pouring away. And it's like, now I'm an empty cup. You're an empty cup. There's all this information on the floor. No one can drink it. Like, what's going on? It's a mess.
I really rather serve from the overflow. And so taking care of yourself to that level, that makes all the difference for everybody around you. There are a lot of people, I know that you're one of them. You do love helping people. You do love, we all overgive and overlove, and we want to fix everything and we want to do everything for everybody. And it's never going to happen without burnout unless you give from that overflow space.
And that is why my open mic is once a week, because I made the grave mistake in my little mind, like, oh, I can do this like Monday through Friday. It's fine. It's something for my brain to look forward to. Yada, yada. Week 2, I was like, who told me?
Tell that story though, because we weren't on recording when we were talking about that. So tell them what you were doing with all that. COVID came around, all the poetry came online. What were you doing with that?
So it's funny because I had been telling all of my mentors and poetry family, I'm going to host one day. Like, I hosted the Drummer's Beat. I'm going to host open mics one day. Like, it's going to be a thing. I'm going to do workshops. And then every time I was asked, so when are you going to host? I'm like, I don't know. And this is where the owning your journey thing also ties in too. So I've been trying to sign up for virtual open mic one night. And I tried like 4 different open mics. I was following the instructions. I'm like, what the heck? Why can't I get on? I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I'm going to just go to my Instagram live and I'm just going to be like, hey, if you guys want to check in, you want to spit some poetry, you want to do whatever, like, come on over. And one of my poetry sisters, Azia Monet, came over and she's like, I didn't get to finish my poem and I couldn't get on that open mic that you were trying to get on either. And I'm like, okay. I said, do a poem. And so she did a poem. Next thing you know, she's sending the live to people. And then people start showing up. They're like, I want to get up next. I'm like, okay, so we have an open mic happening. And that night we just happened to be after all the other open mics had finished. So I was like, oh, after the mic is really a thing. But it really, my idea for the show, it is changing. It is evolving. I have other ideas as it expands. But I said, we're going to be back here Monday through Friday. I was so into the moment. It was such an in the moment thing. I was committed. I was like, yeah, we're going to be here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And then I was like, wait, what? What did you say? But I had to commit. And so that's part of owning your journey, is that once you say something, hold on to that and take it, commit to it. You don't know where it's going to take you. Right. I now have a whole platform where we get, 30, we started with tiny little numbers and now we get 25, 30, sometimes 40 something people in that room. And I'm like, if this was a venue right now, like we'd be killing it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it's been beautiful though. I mean, the healing that happens in that space is just amazing. The people who have never gotten on open mic before and they're just like, I saw how nice you looked, or I just saw that, you were laughing and smiling with the people and I decided, hey, she doesn't seem so bad. This is a non-judgmental situation. Yes. I'm like, yeah, come on. Why would I judge you? I don't know what happened to you today. This may be saving your life. How many times have I gone to an open mic and it was me saving my own life? Yeah. When the depression would just get way out of control and the thoughts would just start to take over. And I was like, if I don't read a poem in front of someone, I don't know if I'm going to get it to tomorrow. And yeah, I wanted that same respect given to everyone else because it's what was given to me.
It is that big of a deal. And for everyone who's listening, who hasn't been, you should go. But really it does hit that deep. And I'm so glad that you talked about it that way. We've been doing some similar things and we've had some feedback that's been similar. And sometimes the host needs to hear that, like, oh yeah, it is that deep, it is, because we know it. And then we're just, sometimes you go into the mind, of course, wants to doubt it or whatever it wants to do. But I'm so glad that that's continuing to work out, hopefully one time a week, and you could have some sleep in between and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. It was a bittersweet moment on our show Friday. We had a really great feature. But it was just like this moment where I was like, I'm not working on Monday through Thursday. Like it was this celebration of I am going to be okay. But what I realized was, the power of the power of the platform is life-changing. Mm-hmm. not just for those who come into the space, but for me, the host as well, recognizing like, okay, I'm healing from this too. Cause every now and then I'll get someone doing a poem and I'm like, oh man, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much. I needed that, my cup to be refilled in that moment. So it is really, it is just so magical what we do. That's why I have a unicorn as our thing for a couple of reasons. One, I was told that if this was a jousting match, that I would be riding a unicorn against, like, with a unicorn horn, like, you know, I don't know. It was just, but I was like, okay, unicorns, that's it.
Okay, listen, you brought up a unicorn. So let's wrap up with this last question, okay?
Yes.
And it's something that you wanted to talk about, but like, how perfect is it that you talked about a unicorn? So you say that the power of manifestation is real when the work coincides with it. What are you talking about there? I know you're talking about magical unicorns though, so I love it.
Yes, so literally it is magic. Manifestation is real, but the power of the mind is, you can literally do anything you put your mind to. But when you when you bring it from the mind and put it into the physical space, it becomes alive. You start literally breathing life into this thing that was physically non-existent, and now it is becoming a physically existent thing. So first step is writing it down, literally take a pen to paper, not just type it up, take your hand to your paper and put it down. That's how I start. Yes. Then I type it up. Then I put it on my dream board. Then I put it on the calendar. I start setting dates. Nice. Start setting goals, and then I start talking it, breathing, doing it's almost like doing CPR, literally pushing life into this thing that I want to see, and just start gathering the pieces to make it happen. And the more and more that you do that, you literally are watching your creation come to life. And a lot of that is how I manifest a lot of my poetry. I'm like, listen, I have this feeling, I have this idea, I need this poem to happen. And then it just starts to happen. And then also having faith helps too, like just in yourself. If you are not a, religious or spiritual person, that's cool. Like, everyone has their own path. I happen to be very spiritual, but faith within the self. I have a line in one of my pieces where I say, my mother says, if you know yourself, you know God. And God not necessarily being the religious God, but like knowing your higher consciousness and being at your highest level of functioning. It can happen if you want it to happen.
So would you like to close the show out with a poem?
Sure. I feel like I'm not putting you on the spot.
Okay,
no,
good.
No, you're not. Laura,
never,
I love
right?
you to pieces. If you ask me for anything, I'm like, okay, yeah, what do you need? Do you have any requests?
Oh gosh, that would be putting me on the spot. No. Do it. Do your fave.
Something.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. This is honestly, I do this so much, but it is literally one of my favorite pieces I've ever written. No offense to my other babies. Because your poems are like your children.
I hear you.
So yes. Daenerys Targaryen ain't got shit on me. Because I'm Stormborn in all the categories. Surviving and thriving in my holiest domain after how they treated this queen. You damn right she's mad, and when they crack those history books open, the pages will rustle from rage. Because I am the first of my name, breaker of generational chains, the verbal bridge to our serenity, protector of my people and our history, coveting them in pages instead of trapping them in cages. I am the mother of dragons. Caravans carry their flames at my back. The old gods and the new smile down at me, shielding me from all dangers seen and unseen, and I'm sure you'd like to know how I know. While the crows, the ravens, and everything in the sky with wings told me so. My villages and the warmth of my blood no longer feared the coldest winter, the night filled white walking in faith, so I didn't need my sight, 'cause like I said, I'm stormborn and bred. Forge my sword in the fiery pits of hell and back on land again. Wash my sins away in my king's landing. My mind is expanding over lands and seas, and they said it could never be done. Well, now this dragon queen has won more battles than could be counted. On my iron throne I stay mounted, ready to sip my wine, and a crown shall be restored upon my head, and there it shall stay. Because each season I find new reasons to remove traitors for committing treason, but unlike Danny, I need not be cruel. Always in the mode of being ready to rule my kingdom, it stay under the watchful eye of a three-eyed raven above and below. But oh, to the writers at HBO who didn't think anything would come around, when we got mad about Masande's head hitting the ground, headless, crownless, y'all didn't give a damn about brownness. In fact, there aren't that many that look like me on your show. Actually, y'all got more nominations at the Golden Globes, but I still watched it decorated in gold, so that's supposed to be proof that it was good. What? Because you got us watching fantasy shit in the hood? Come on, let's just be honest. I only tuned in for the sex drama and the tea. Because the fact of the matter is, if Daenerys Targaryen was real in this world, she still wouldn't have shit on me. And that's that piece.
You are such a gift to this world, my dear.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for that. That is just, I get goosebumps when I hear it. And of course, I've never heard it just for me personally, even though I know this is going out to everybody. It's like, felt like it was for me today with my earphones on.
Thank you so much. I love that piece because it encompasses everything we talked about. Even if you've never watched the show, the lines that resonate with me the most is walking in faith, so I didn't need my sight. Like, I could be blind and I would just be like, here we go. Yes. You know, we just have to move in the power within ourselves, the faith within ourselves.
Yes, so much yes. All right, you guys, I know you just you're waiting to click away, and I want you to go over to the notes right now, and you're going to hit on lolngo.org, and you're also going to find, let me just make sure I'm looking it up right here. I'll have you guys all linked up, don't worry. But Instagram, you're a couple different places. Say them again, would you?
So you guys can follow me on Instagram at queen_genius.genie. You can also check out After the Mic, which is every Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We usually run till about 2 a.m. for all those late night individuals, at After the Mic on Instagram. So straight up one word, After the Mic. And lol.ngo is our Instagram too. So you guys want to see what we're doing, all these pages are going to be updating a lot over the next few weeks now that I have, Monday through Thursday back. So be on the lookout for a lot more information, for the workshops, for all the events we'll be having coming up. It's a lot of great stuff coming.
Awesome. When is the next workshop? How are you rolling that? Is it going to be a certain date?
Yes. So June 10th, we're going to have Keep the Conversation Going, Watering Your Garden, How to Maintain and Develop relationships within your circle in a healthy way. It's definitely going to be a really good workshop. I've been cultivating this one for the last few weeks, and I'm so excited because when you make room in your life, when you push negativity out of your life, beautiful positive energy comes in, and you got to know how to keep it. So
yeah, you guys aren't going to be disappointed by that. So go check it out. Afia, thank you so much for what you're doing in the world, and honestly, just for being here with me today to share it.
Of course, Laura, I absolutely love you. I admire you. I look up to you. And honestly, this journey could not have actually been what it has been without you and your energy as well. Like, you were a part of this journey for me. And I'm so honored and grateful to know you, and the work that you're doing is incredible. Brave healing.
Yay. Thank you. All right, you guys. Wow. Okay. Lastly, just today, let's leave out. I want you to remember something. You were born, so you're worthy. Your message matters. So, what if the thing you're still a little afraid to share is exactly the thing someone needs to hear to either change or even save their life? Time to be brave, you guys. See you next time.